if you're a creative, maybe you've run into this thing where you wonder, you're like, maybe there's someone out there in the professional, the an entertainment professional who could help further my career. Maybe I need to assemble a team of suits around me, and they're going to be the ones that are going to help propel me towards fame and fortune. And I feel like this is a trap of sorts because you're kind of like outsourcing your own future to other people. But in the same breath, you kind of like, yeah, that seems to be how showbiz works, right? It's not just like some random dude creates something and then people flock to it. There's like a business associated around the show. But so should you fucking bother? Or should you just be like, no, I've got mummy and daddy issues. I should talk about how they ignored me when I was 11. Because why the fuck am I trying to gain validation from these talentless fuckheads who are trying to profit off me? I read about this book recently. I believe it came out in the 50s. It's called Where Are All the Clients' Yachts? And essentially, the story is of this young guy in New York. I think he went Long Island somewhere where all the bankers and brokers, he just joined a new firm. They were having a shindig on the weekend and he got there and I think it was saying it was like they'd invited clients as well. And this young pup on the team asked the one of the heavy hitters, where are all the clients' yachts? And they looked at him like he was a fucking moron because it's like, no, the clients are schmucks, you fucking idiot. We utilize them to make ourselves rich. And that's the game. What like how did why are you here if you don't understand that? I think there's a similar parasitic relationship that exists within show business across any type of medium. I believe some are worse than others. Music seems pretty terrible. But yeah, that it's the similar model where you've got the creative person who is compelled to create and produce something. They want to perform or they want to make a record, they want to make a movie, and there's people around them who are like, yeah, we can profit off this. And yeah, I just don't I'm kind of so anti authoritarian that I'm very glad that I was born in this era where you can kind of convince yourself, and I think it's largely true that the old models are kind of failing, that you really can you can kind of get things going yourself. And because you think about like back in the day, if you're like in the 60s or 70s and you wanted to be like a stand-up comedian, there would have been a very pretty much a prescribed path to do that. Go to the clubs, try and get stage time, try and get good, try and get on the Johnny Carson show, and then you become a headliner, and then you maybe get your own TV show or movies. That's essentially it. There's no other way to do it. Now there's a million ways to get an audience, and it seems like you kind of have to like prove it before the suits would be interested. Like you have to kind of like you have to generate some interest yourself with a DIY approach, and only then the suits would be involved. Whereas back in the day, it seemed like the suits were kind of the ones that you really needed to go after pretty a lot earlier in the piece. But yeah, I just think that that's why things like the current writers strike that's going on in Hollywood, and I just it's so condescending how they get like Sarah Silverman or George Clooney or fucking Jodie Foster to go down there and hold up a sign where it's like, dude, you guys won the fucking lottery through your own talent and hard work, sure. But the way this game works is that anyone creative has a fucking mental illness. And they have a compulsion to do creative stuff. They're going to do it. If they were living under a bridge, they'd be fucking doing graffitis on the wall between fentanyl bumps. But instead, you got lucky and things worked out for you, and now you're one of the haves. And there's millions of have-nots around you because there's only a certain amount of attention in the world, and you can only monetize that attention to a certain demographic of people at a certain time. And so therefore you can't have jobs for everyone who's talented or interested or hardworking or pretty or funny or whatever. It's just like it's a crapshoot. And there's going to be some extremely big winners on the performer side, and a lot more winners on the fucking suit side. So I think the quicker you kind of work that out, that those people aren't really there to help you. At a certain point, I think you could maybe help one another, but they have no fucking interest in you. An agent only cares about you if they can make money off your product. So you may as well get really fucking good at writing books, and then maybe one day they could make you more money, but it's really like the thing's got to be in your own hand. I listened to a long time ago, just finally, there's this great speech that the comedian Ari Shafir did. This must be like 15 years ago. I'm not sure. It's still got to be on YouTube somewhere, where he spoke to these young comics at the Comedy Store in LA, and he gave them advice about how to get started with their comedy careers. His MO being that, like, when he came to LA, no one told him all this shit, and he had to run into walls and fuck up and make all these mistakes. And so he was kind of like doing them a solid by being like, here's the things I've learned. Don't make these mistakes and do this, do that. And he talked about engaging with like industry. And he was like, yeah, don't be weird around them. Like, don't fucking, don't hide away or like not introduce yourself. But also just remember that like they're only going to care about you once you've got something to, something valuable. You gotta create something valuable, and then you can kind of like, then these people may come along. If you don't have anything valuable, you just, it's funny just playing this out now. You can just see how people, young impressionable people, would just get either physically or psychologically fucked because they're just their whole self-worth is tied up in this other entity who are kind of like substitutes from however their parents failed back in the day. So I think it's gonna be way cheaper and way less dangerous for you to resolve those relationships first and foremost. Then I guess you can kind of like you can create from a space of joy and understanding and peace. That's when you can create your most misanthropic, hateful music, comedy, books, whatever you do. All right, that's my rant on this, over and done with. Yeah. Where are all the clients' yachts? They don't fucking exist, baby.